So I've talked about aging in an old building. And again, it's a lot of what we do around here. We take down these old buildings, we salvage all the materials, and we use them in several different projects between fireplace mantles, pieces of furniture, and even accent walls. Another way to age your building or to tell when it was built is simply by walking in the door and looking up. If you look up and you see that the boards are close together on the rafters, then they probably used wooden shingles or shakes to put on the roof at the time. These boards are what we call naily board because it's got so many nails in it, and all these nails are square nails, and that means that there were shingles on this roof at one time, which is probably before the 1850s. Everything after the 1850s, 1870s, 80s, 90s, they started going to this corrugated metal. And the barns they all had corrugated metal. Today, people still like to put the shakes on their roofs, but back then it was a necessity because that's basically all the materials they had to work with. So by just walking in the barn, looking up, seeing how the boards are spaced together, if they're further apart, that means that they originally put metal on that roof, which would date that building probably way past 1850. In this case, this barn was most likely before 1850. There's been several barns that we've taken down in old homes that have had shingle roofs on them, so we know that the wood dates back. Recently, we took a barn down here in Southwest Virginia, and remember, the settlers came to Virginia around 1607 when the English settlers came over. It all started in Virginia and up the East Coast, Massachusetts around 1620, and they moved west. So we have some of the oldest buildings on the East Coast, especially right here in Virginia, and they're getting to the point where they're either falling down or need to come down, and that's why we salvage the material. Recently, we took down a barn, and we found this old trough. This is a feeding trough. This trough was actually made out of one log, and it's basically the ways they used to make the old canoes. They would hollow out the log. Just as this is, this trough was basically cut with an adze and hollowed out versus just taking a few boards and nailing them together. They did it out of a solid piece of wood. So that's a really cool thing. Even to the point where it has this old carving right here, which somebody carved, and we put this on Facebook, and we dated that back to the 1860s, where this family, the Wade and the Flushers, were in this barn at the time, and they carved their name in it and put a heart around it. It's like being a detective, and you're going in and you're trying to age everything and trying to figure out these buildings. But a really easy way is like I talked about. Just look up, see how far apart the boards were spaced. Did they use shingles on that barn, or did they start that barn when it was new with a metal roof?